Welcome back to Practice Intimacy. I'm Jamie Lynn, and this is the place to be to learn all about love, relationships, and how to have the best sex life you possibly can. I am super excited to talk to you today. I actually felt really inspired to do a video all of a sudden, and so I'm not even wearing makeup because I was not prepared. But this will be a fun video. We're going to be talking about the nuances of sex. And first, let's just start with a little definition about nuance. So nuance is all about subtlety and being able to pull out the slight variations that a person experiences in any sort of experience. So whenever they first started talking about nuance, I actually think that the word was meant to talk about nuance in sound, in music, and picking out like subtle undertones and things like that in musical performances. But we've taken the word and use it to describe really anything that can be pulled apart and made to become more subtle and variable. And so let me talk to you about what nuanced sex is, and then I'm going to discuss why it's important and what it could do for you in your relationship. So nuanced sex is being able to play with the different ranges and the different varieties of sexuality that are possible. I'm going to break that down even more because this is a fun thing to describe, but so often people don't get it. So what I'm going to start with is, what is not nuanced sex? And I would say an example, the clearest example that almost all of us have probably seen in the world of sex that is not very nuanced is really any mainstream heteronormative porn where the man is just repetitively thrusting. And there isn't variety in the thrusting, there's just thrusting happening. That is an example of not very nuanced sex. I'm not saying it's bad sex, that can be really fun, but nuanced sex is being able to, one, change the way that you're having, in this case, intercourse. So rather than just thrusting, maybe using the penis to hit different spots inside of the vagina, because you get different sensations whenever you go towards either the walls of the vagina or you press down to where you're putting pressure on the perineum sponge, or you press up and you're getting more G-spot stimulation. And so that's one way to be more nuanced, is if I'm going to be actually inside of another person, then what am I doing inside there? And then more nuance would be, okay, what about the pressure or the speed with which I'm moving? That's all examples of nuance if you're having intercourse. And right now I'm talking about like penis and vagina, but that is not the only way to have intercourse. That is not the only way to have sex. And so there's so many other different ways to become nuanced sexually that aren't even about intercourse. So think about it this way. Nuanced sexuality could be playing with a range of feeling in sex. Do I want it to feel really connected and seductive? Do I want it to feel more sensual and worshipy? Worshipy, is that a word? I think I just coined that. Do I want it to feel kind of kinky? Do I want it to feel passionate and hot? Do I want it to be more like fucking? There's a whole range of what you could do sexually. And allowing yourself to play with the different variations and the different possibilities is not only going to make your sex life more exciting and interesting. I'm now getting into like, why would you want to be more nuanced sexually? If you're in a monogamous long-term relationship and you are having sex one specific way most of the time, there's not a lot of variety, obviously. There's not a lot of nuance, and it can get a little bit boring, even if it's awesome. Even if you both enjoy the sex you're having, being able to move into different spaces where you're doing something different, even a little tiny thing different, can make for more exciting, novel sexual encounters. The other thing that's really helpful with nuance is if you are able to become more nuanced in your own sexual experiences, noticing differences in speed and how that feels to you, differences in pressure and how that feels to you, differences in energy and how that feels to you, then it is more likely that you will also become sensitive to what your partner will experience as being pleasurable. Rather than just doing the thing that feels good to you, as you become more nuanced, as you learn to play with different variations of sexual encounters, then it's more likely that you'll be able to hit the things that your partner likes. It helps if you talk to them about what they like, but if you begin building this skill inside yourself, then it's more likely to translate into relationship. I can pay attention to what your body's telling me. I can actually put words to the more subtle things that we could do together and see what lands, what sounds really exciting to you. Another way that I'm thinking about this whole idea of nuance is using the terms that come out of Tantra yoga. So anytime you have a yoga practice, what you're attempting to do is move from more gross experience of life. By gross, I mean what is obvious, what you can see and feel, and it's a very in-your-face almost sort of experience of life. It is absolutely happening because you see it and it is obviously there. The point in yoga is to move from a more gross experience of life to a more subtle experience of life, where you begin to not only experience what is happening around you on a gross level, physically, what's going on, obviously what's going on, but you also start to notice what's happening on an energetic level and on a less obvious level. Any of you who have a yoga practice, you've had experience of this. So imagine whenever you first started practicing and it was so hard that all you could focus on was how heavy you were breathing and how much your muscles were in pain and how much you were shaking, and probably also your mind wandering and being all frustrated because the practice is hard. And with time, as you get deeper and deeper into practicing, more subtlety comes through, more nuance comes through. And then you're able to not only be in a posture, which is still difficult, but you can feel the heat building in your body. You can feel the little bit of sweat that's gathering in places. You can continue to hold your breath calmly rather than letting it come out as panting, working breath. And you might also start to be able to feel the slight high experience, the natural high that comes into your body as you're doing practices like this. That's moving from a gross experience of the world to a more subtle experience. And sex can be exactly the same, where instead of, this sounds crude and I don't mean for it to be crude, sex is always, not always, consensual sex that you're looking forward to is always fun. But you can do things to make it better. So it's the difference between like bodies banging up against each other doing the thing, and it feels good. Our bodies are meant to do that. It's really fun and exciting. Orgasms feel nice. But it's the difference between that and having a sexual experience that is flowing, where your bodies are really moving with each other in a way that is bringing the most amount of pleasure possible and surprising you constantly. If you're moving with subtlety, moving with nuance, then you're more likely to ride the line of pleasure rather than just rushing towards orgasm. And in the end, you will have a more positive sexual experience. It is very likely that I will talk about this subject again in the future because it's such a fun one, and it's also a little hard to grasp. Like it's definitely a concept that you have to experience before it really starts to make sense. But I can tell you that it is a worthwhile venture because it will create a more dynamic experience for you, a more exciting experience, and again, a more novel experience. And hopefully that translates to giving your partner a more exciting experience as well. Remember to like this video. If you know anyone who might benefit from it, please send it to them. And subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate the support, and I'm always excited to give these weekly videos talking about sex, love, and relationship. I'll see you in the next one.